Salutations. Hey, it's been ages. I know, I'm sorry. It's been like a good few months since I've uploaded here. I had to take a break, it was necessary. Mental health reasons, and then also my old camera died. Now we're using a webcam. We're trying to make do. I have some new videos filmed, but they're all very long and they're taking me forever to edit because I hate editing. So I thought something I could do to like soft launch back my YouTube channel while I'm working on everything was to upload an old Patreon video that I did. So for anyone who doesn't know, I have a Patreon, and on there I do like one bonus like YouTube style video a month that everyone like votes on the topic for. So at some point last year, like it was a hot minute ago, everyone voted for me to make a video talking about my favorite fan fictions, and it was like the most popular video I ever did on there. So I thought it's been long enough that it's been exclusive on there. I could upload that for you guys today. It's been so long since I filmed it, I cannot remember what I said in it, what fan fictions I talked about, and I'm too scared to watch it back, so I hope that I don't say anything too embarrassing or anything incriminating. I don't know. But I thought that could be a little introduction back to uploading YouTube videos because it's been forever. So enjoy! Greetings and salutations. So you all hate me. You all voted for this month's video to be the one that I was like, please God, no, I'm not ready to share this aspect of myself with the internet. You all voted for me to like talk about my favorite fan fictions from various fandoms. So we're here. I also haven't slept in like 32 hours, so I'm in a great headspace to be doing this. I will preface this with I don't really read fan fiction anymore. I kind of go through phases where I'm either reading a lot of fan fiction or I'm reading a lot of actual books, and for the past like 2 years I've just been reading books consistently, and I haven't really touched any fan fiction besides pretty much just one fic that I've been keeping up to date with. So all of these are kind of outdated. I also can only remember fan fiction for two ships. Took a while to fucking guess what one of them was, because there's a few that I've read a lot for over the years, but when I was going through my AO3 bookmarks, I'd pretty much only bookmarked ones in like the 2018-2019 period of me reading fanfiction, where I was only reading fanfiction for two ships. And all of the really significant titles I could remember were for those two ships. So while I know that I've read my fair share of like Hickstrid fanfiction over the years, and Pearl Tiago, and Romanodges, and Spidey Shell, and Peter and Gwen, like those have all existed. I could not remember any titles that I liked. I could not remember specifically any fan fictions that I liked, nor were there anything on my A3 bookmarks. So what you're getting are things that were on my A3 bookmarks or ones on other sites that I specifically remembered as being really iconic and really instrumental in making me who I am. So the two ships, if you haven't guessed, are Perciveth and Richie and Eddie from It. Ready, because I had a big It by Stephen King phase, as most people know. I'm so sorry if you knew me during that phase of my life. What I'm going to do is say the name of a fanfiction, what site they're on, and talk about the plot, and then in the description, either on the YouTube video of this or just in the Patreon post for it, I'll also put the links to all of the ones that still have links. Some of these I think have been taken down since I read them, so any ones that are still accessible that I can still find links to, I will provide links to. Cool, let's go. Please don't judge me. Okay, we're going to start with the few ready ones, because majority of these are Perciveth, and I feel like most people will only want to read the Perciveth ones. So we're going to start with the few ready ones that we have. So first of all, one that I can remember really loving back in the day is a story called AU, where Pennywise is the general concept of distance. And it's a story about Richie and Eddie meeting each other, I think on like Stan Twitter, Losers Club in general, kind of having a group chat on the internet and meeting through Stan corners of the internet. And it's a story about them kind of meeting when they're on opposite sides of the world, and then breaking that long distance and then finding each other and being able to hang out as a group, and then Richie and Eddie also being together and breaking that concept of distance. And obviously reading this back in 2018 when the only real friends I had were friends that I met on Twitter, the concept of this really spoke to me. Something about it really just touched my heart and soul. Again, I could not even tell you if the writing of this is any good now. All I remember was that I loved the concept, and it was so fun for me as someone who had so many friends on the other side of the world, and they were the only friends that I really felt close to at the time. It was nice to have a story where, you know, that was the situation that the Losers Club were in. The next is one called Wonder Violet. If you were in the It fandom in like 2017, 2018, this was one of the like big three ready fics. So you kind of had Wonder Violet, Ugly Moon, and Mixtape are like the big three of the ready fanfictions, and Wonder Violet was always my personal favorite. There are some things in it that didn't age well even within a couple months after, you know, they came out. Just some not safe for work stuff that became memes very quickly because it was quite cringy dialogue. This
fic, as far as I know, has since been taken down. I don't know if it's been reposted anywhere, but I remember like back in 2019 the author took it down because they were trying to adapt the story into an original novel, which is really cool. But it was basically just a story about Eddie Kaspbrak being a bit of a loner, really struggling to make friends, and befriending this girl named Violet at his school, and then being best friends, and then him kind of falling in love with her older brother Richie at the same time, but not wanting to betray that friendship with Violet while also wanting to pursue his feelings for Richie. And it was all very much so best friend's brother from Victorious. I thought it was beautiful. My favorite aspect of it was actually the dynamic between like Richie and Violet, and those two siblings kind of like adjusting to having to be adults and take care of themselves because they'd recently had their mother pass away. And I just thought it was beautiful in all of those aspects. And you know, there were some really, really cool, like really, really beautiful romantic moments between Richie and Eddie there too. There was some cringy not safe for work moments, but we just ignored those and we focused on the beautiful emotional story. The next one was called On Point. This is probably one that you also read if you were in the fandom at any point in time. It's a ballet AU. I can't remember many specifics of it, but I remember loving this. This story was very not safe for work though, like very much so not safe for work, because that's what I was reading at 16. This story was about Eddie specifically being at, I think, like a ballet school or performing arts school or something. It was some prestigious school. He's a ballerina. Richie is like a really annoying piano player. He plays piano in their rehearsals, and it's a bit enemies to lovers, and they start kind of like hooking up when they're still enemies, and they slowly fall in love. And I only really remember the not safe for work aspects of this story, I'm not gonna lie, because they're burned into my brain. This is a specific scene that references Side to Side by Ariana Grande, and it's just burned into my memory forever. The next one is called Inexhaustible Source of Magic. This was a Hogwarts AU because I love a fucking Hogwarts AU. I really, really do. In any fandom that's not Harry Potter, I fucking love a Hogwarts AU. I think I disagreed with the houses that they put Richie and Eddie in here, but to each their own. I'm pretty sure this was specifically about the Triwizard Tournament, but everyone was competing in pairs, I think. So Richie and Eddie were competing together for Hogwarts. It was something like that. They were competing in pairs on the Triwizard Tournament. It was a Hogwarts AU. I love a Hogwarts AU. It was called Inexhaustible Source of Magic. This was on AO3. The last one that I can remember, I could not find a link for, but I believe was on AO3, but I cannot remember the author's name. And when I searched this up, all the fics from other fandoms came up, but it was called Dreamboat, I believe. I cannot remember the specifics of this story very much at all, but I remember it like defining my life at the time. I was obsessed with it. I was just eagerly awaiting updates constantly. It was a story about, I think Eddie was an artist, or he was a writer, but he had writer's block, and then he would always try and write in a cafe that Richie worked in, and Richie decided that he was going to like take him out and give him all these life experiences to write about. I believe that was the plot. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Hi, first of all, I apologize for my appearance. I know I look like garbage and the lighting is garbage, but I am having a mad depression brain day and I simply cannot. I don't have the energy to get up and put on makeup just to film this little portion. But I'm editing this now and I just remembered that there was another Ready fic that I do remember that I loved. It wasn't necessarily a fan fiction, but it was a fan comic, and it was called Loose Ends. I think it was on Tumblr at the time, but it moved onto like a platform like Patreon, I think, because it eventually became not safe for work, and because it was a comic, it was a visual thing. It was being put up in the time where Tumblr was just having its like ban on not safe for work content. I don't know if that's still a thing. I don't go on Tumblr anymore, but it just, everything that they tried to post kept getting taken down. So they eventually moved to another platform with like a paywall that I never went. But I loved this fan comic called Loose Ends. That was, you had two dual timelines. It was like them as teenagers and then them as adults as well. And I can't remember the plot, but when they were teenagers, Richie had this nightmare where someone was talking to him about loose ends, and then it turned out to be lose eds, like don't lose eds or something. I can't remember. It was good though. My absolute favorite fanfiction from my It Stan days though was not a Ready fanfic, although there was Ready aspects to it, but it was a whole Losers Club found family fic, and it was called And That's All for Time. It was a fanfiction about the Losers Club. It was a modern AU, but it was about them working at a Renaissance fair together during the summer as their summer job, and I think it was their senior year before they were going off to college. I don't know if the story ever got finished. I didn't read it to completion if it did. This story is one of my favorite found family stories like ever. I absolutely adored it. there was something about the way that this story specifically talked about found families that really spoke to me. And that's obviously the aspect of it by Stephen King that I loved so much, was the Losers Club as a friendship and as a dynamic, and that found family aspect of it. So having that in the story was really, really nice, and having that focused on, and like feeling like all the characters were portrayed accurately and that they all got like enough screen time. Like a lot of Losers Club fics were still very like Richie and Eddie heavy, or like Stenbro heavy, and this one actually gave a lot of time to like Mike and Ben, and it was one of the few fan fictions that had like Stanley and Patty as a ship rather than shipping Stanley with Bill, because I never really liked the Stanley and Bill ship personally, so I always just loved that. So yeah, and that's all for time. Now let's do Perciveth fics. So the first one that I'm going to talk about was my absolute comfort fanfiction when I was like, I first read this fic when I was like 11, and it was my comfort fic then, and it still is. It's one that I go to anytime I kind of like need to feel grounded, and there was just something really comforting about this story. And looking at it now, there's a lot of aspects about it that are quite unhealthy, but I still romanticize a little bit. So this is I think this is the only fic on here that is on fanfiction.net, because this was back when I read on fanfiction.net. I was never really much of a Wattpad person personally. I went from fanfiction.net to AO3. That was always the progress that I made. There was a couple specific fics that I'd read on Wattpad because people would recommend them to me, but I was not like an active Wattpad person. That was not my home site. But this fic was called You're Okay and I'm Here, and it's about Annabeth, who is in love with Percy, helping Percy through a breakup with Rachel Elizabeth there. It's a mortal AU, no demigod stuff, but it's Annabeth just being there as a best friend for Percy and helping him heal through this horrible breakup that he's going through, and being there for him. And then, you know, they fall in love during it, and like looking back, it is very unhealthy. The amount of codependency that Percy and Annabeth have in this fic now I can recognize is unhealthy, but also I still want it. I still want that. I still romanticize that so heavily in my mind. This was the idea of romance to me as a kid. It still is the idea of romance to me. The next one is a fic on Tumblr, which is potentially my favorite fanfiction of all time. It is a very short one shot. I first read it in like 2015 or 2016, I think, and there is not a day that has passed since then that I don't think about this. It's literally everything to me, and you'll fucking know why. It's called Once Upon a Dream. It's by Dorky Demigod on Tumblr. I used to have on my old, like 3 of my old laptops all had this like bookmarked on my fucking home screen because I used to read this so much. And it's a fic about Annabeth being dared by Piper to kiss a stranger in a Nemo hat during the fireworks at Disney World. Guess who the stranger in the Nemo hat is? The next one is back on AO3. It's called Game Set Match. This is a tennis AU. Basically, Percy and Annabeth are rival tennis players, or no, not technically rival because they'll be on different teams. I can't remember. It's been a hot minute since I read this. They're both tennis players. Maybe they get along, maybe they don't, but they get into a friends with benefits situation, and then obviously they catch feelings and it gets messy and it's angsty and brilliant, and I love it. This is also one that's super not safe for work. The next one is also one of my favorites, and one that I recommend like everyone that asks me in stream for Perciveth recommendations. You'll probably have heard me say this. It's also on AO3. It's called In a Storm in My Best Dress. Trigger warning for the beginning of this story for racism. I don't agree with the inclusion of this, but for some reason, basically Annabeth is a horrible person at the beginning of this story, and it's about the main through line, while Percy and Annabeth fall in love and blah 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 during it. The main story arc, the main plot point is Annabeth learning to be a better person by opening herself up to other people. She's very like closed off and isolated and doesn't really trust anyone, doesn't let anyone in. She puts up a lot of walls and is a very mean person because of this. And this is a story about her bringing down those walls and her getting close with Piper and Percy and letting them in. And then it's also like this gorgeous story about Percy's mental health and him getting out of a toxic relationship. It's brilliant, but trigger warning at the beginning. For some fucking reason, Annabeth didn't just have to be a regular bitch to Piper, she had to be racist, which I don't agree with, but it is a present thing there. The thing is, I love this story besides that, but yeah, massive trigger warning. Don't read this if that's going to be upsetting to you, and I completely understand if it is. Also on AO3, we have another very on brand favorite little one shot of mine. It's called A Dream Come True. It is about Percy taking his, I don't remember if it's Estelle, I think it's just a unspecified little sister, because I think this is before Estelle was canon, taking a little sister around, I can't remember if it's Disneyland or Disney World, but a Disney park, and him thinking he sees a princess with curly blonde hair, but it's just a pretty cast member. It's Annabeth. The next one is, I think, the first fanfiction that I ever read on AO3. It was also the first smut that I ever read, just fun fact. Stucco Hearts. It's a soulmate AU in which you basically have a timer put in you, I think by the government. It's a like kind of dystopian soulmate AU that counts down to the moment that you meet your soulmate. And then when you meet your soulmate, you kind of have like a specified amount of time to move in together, to get married. You legally have to do all these things once you meet your soulmate. And Annabeth and Talia as well are both people who are very anti-soulmate. They're against the system. They don't believe in it. They think it's like, you know, oppressive. They think it takes away free will, which they're kind of right about. And it's a story about kind of Percy being a hopeless romantic who believes in the system, and Annabeth being like, no, I don't believe in this. And they meet, and obviously they're soulmates. And then it's Percy trying to be like, I respect it, but also want to be in love. And Annabeth being like, I absolutely do not want to be in love. I don't agree with this, but shit, I think I'm falling in love with you anyway. Yeah, I read this when I was like 14 or 15. It was like one of the best things I'd read at the time, and I haven't read it since, but I believe it still holds up because I still recommend it to people and have them tell me that it's really good. So hopefully it still holds up. Now the next one is one of the fan fictions that I still keep up to date with, and one of my favorite fan fictions ever written, but God please forgive me for it. It's called Would It Really Kill You If We Kissed? It's a AU in which Percy and Annabeth are adults and they're living in New Rome, and New Rome is kind of like a different kind of place, and Percy's Roman, and he's kind of like the like, oh, I can't even remember what they call him, but he's like the kind of like evil prince of New Rome. He's kind of like a mob gang leader without like being a gang leader. Yeah, Annabeth moves to New Rome after you know, a lifetime of being at Camp Half-Blood and being a demigod, to try and pursue architecture there and just kind of live freely. And she gets really annoyed at someone not getting out of a sparring ring that she had booked one night, and challenges them to a duel without realizing that it was Percy Jackson, the man who everyone warned her about. And obviously she kind of like holds her own in the fight, even though she's a daughter of Athena and doesn't have any magical powers, and he's like this all-powerful son of Neptune. And it's really good, but it's also filth, and don't judge me. The next one is another AO3 fic. It's called And They Were Roommates. Oh my god, they were roommates. It's about it. That's my summary. Okay, the next thing is two fics on AO3. They are like coinciding. It's the same story from Percy's point of view and then Annabeth's point of view. So Annabeth's point of view is called If I Were to Pluck on Your Heartstrings, and Percy's called Would You Strum on Mine. It's my favorite soulmate AU that I've ever read. You basically have like strings attached to different people in your life, and the colors of them signify what they mean to you. And it's everything to me. It's everything to me. This is like my favorite soulmate AU that I've ever read, and that is saying something because soulmate AUs are my favorite AUs. Next up, also on AU3, we have Long Live All the Magic We Made. This is my favorite like magical AU for Percy I've ever written, and that's including Hogwarts AU. This is not a Hogwarts AU or a Harry Potter AU. It is just an AU in which magic exists in a world. And basically Percy's magic starts acting up whenever he's around Annabeth, and he can't figure out why, and it is the cutest thing I've ever read in my life, and I go back to it all the time when I just need some serotonin. The other fanfic that I keep up to date with on AO3 still is Apartment 305. If you're on Twitter nowadays, I feel like everyone knows what Apartment 305 is nowadays. It is just pure serotonin. It's just pure serotonin. And the last recommendation that I have for you is possibly, I think, the greatest Percy fanfiction ever written. This is on AO3 as well. I know it, but I originally read this on the author's Tumblr as well, so you can find it on either site. It's called Impossible Year. It is a story about Annabeth and Percy, but particularly Annabeth processing the trauma from Tartarus in a real legitimate way and in a heartbreakingly realistic way, and it's almost pure angst but in a realistic sense, and it has a happy ending still, and it's just gorgeous. And it's, if you're like me and you're someone who gets very annoyed at how much Percy and Annabeth's potential trauma is just brushed over in canon, this is the perfect story for you. You will love this as much as I do, and I hope that you love it as much as I do, because it is just one of the most beautiful things I've ever read in my entire life. Anyway, those are my favorite fanfictions. If you all go and read any of these, please don't fucking judge me about the smart. Please, let's never speak to me about it. If you read any of them and they happen to be not safe for work, just never bring it up to me, I beg of you. Besides that, thank you guys for being here. Happy to announce that I ordered all the stuff for my Yelena cosplay like yesterday because of you guys. So thank you for letting that be a possibility for me and a reality for me. And I hope that you guys like the Yelena cosplay that I do when it all gets here, and hopefully you like the content I make for her, and I hope that you're liking the stuff that I make now. I hope that it's living up to just stuff that's worthy of your time. I love all of you. Thank you for being here and supporting me. You're everything to me. Mwah, I love you.